The snow was falling in a horizontal blizzard. Through the swirling white, I could just make out the shoulder of the road. My windshield wipers struggled futilely against the accumulating ice. It was a biting cold, the kind that sears the skin before it turns it numb. And a single thought repeated in my mind. If they are truly out in this, their time is running out. The call had arrived not even 20 minutes earlier. An anonymous tip reported 2 puppies abandoned in a box near 7th and Morgan, behind a dumpster. They were freezing, motionless. I found it hard to believe. What kind of person would do such a thing during a storm of this magnitude? Yet I went, because experience has taught me that the most improbable calls are often the most crucial. As I steered into the alley, my headlights sliced through the snowstorm. I spotted the dumpster first, and then a shape, half submerged in a drift, a cardboard box, sodden and collapsing from the weight of the frost. I leaped from the truck, slammed the door, and sprinted toward it. What I discovered when I got there is an image that will be etched in my memory forever. A small German Shepherd puppy, perhaps 8 weeks of age, was standing inside the box. He trembled so violently it seemed he might collapse at any moment. His back was crusted with snow and ice clung to his whiskers, yet he remained on his feet. He did this because beneath him, huddled against the soaked cardboard, lay his sister. She was still, and he refused to abandon her. He stood there on his wobbly legs, using his own small body to shield her from the wind. His eyes met mine, and in that instant, I swear he didn't resemble a puppy. He resembled a guardian. I knelt quickly, murmuring, "It's all right, little guy. I have you. You're both safe now." He issued no growl, nor did he flinch. He just continued to stand his ground until I carefully reached in, encircled them both with my arms, and felt the faint warmth of his tiny chest pressed firmly against her frozen fur. Only then did he finally relent. His legs buckled. His head rested on my shoulder, but his sister moved just enough to nuzzle her nose into his neck. That was the moment I broke down. There, in the heart of a snowstorm, in a frozen back alley, were 2 puppies, barely alive, clinging to each other as if it was all they had ever known. And I understood right then that this would be more than just another rescue. This was different. This was family. I hurried back to the truck, the 2 of them wrapped securely in my coat. I had no blankets, no heat packs, only my own body heat and whatever I could offer. I turned the heater on full blast and held them near me on the passenger seat, one arm securing them both, praying aloud for them to hold on. The little male, whom I had already named Cooper in my head, was barely conscious but still pressed himself against his sister as if she was his entire world. Her breathing was faint, almost imperceptible. I gently rubbed their ears and paws, doing anything to stimulate their circulation. "Stay with me," I whispered. "You're almost there. I promise." I phoned Elise from the truck. She was the same veterinarian who had helped me with Ryder months before. Her voice was serene but firm. "Bring them here. I will be waiting." We arrived in 20 minutes, perhaps less. I carried them into the clinic as if they were made of delicate glass. Elise took a single look and called out for heated fluids, warm towels, and all necessary supplies. There was no time for pleasantries. Cooper whimpered when we attempted to separate them, a soft, plaintive sound that seemed to say, "Please, don't." So we didn't. We situated them together on the examination table, nestled side by side beneath layers of fleece. "Her pulse is weak," Elise stated, her fingers on the little female's paw. "She's significantly colder than he is." "That's because he was shielding her," I said under my breath. Elise looked at me, then back at the puppies. He had kept her alive. We spent hours warming them, providing hydration, and monitoring their vitals. Cooper was the first to show signs of response. His eyes opened, and his tiny ears twitched. He drank a small amount from a syringe, his gaze never leaving Bella. That was the name I chose for her. It simply felt right. Her recovery was slower, but each time she stirred, it was to snuggle closer into Cooper's side. And each time, he would press nearer as if to reassure her, "I'm still right here." That night, I would not leave their side. Elise prepared a cot for me next to their enclosure, but I couldn't sleep. I just watched and listened. Every slight breath they took felt like a miracle. At approximately 3 a.m., Bella opened both of her eyes. Cooper was already awake, observing her, and for the first time, they both managed a faint wag of their tails, perfectly in sync. I whispered, "You two are truly something special." And I knew in my heart that whatever ordeal they had endured, they had survived it together, and now they would heal in the same manner. For the next few days, the clinic became their universe, and mine as well. I stopped returning home, choosing to sleep beside their kennel and subsist on granola bars from a vending machine. Elise would check on me twice daily, eventually ceasing her pleas for me to get some rest. "You have no intention of going anywhere, do you?" she asked on the third day. I simply shook my head. "They're not leaving me, so I'm not leaving them." Cooper was the first to stand on his own 2 feet, still a bit unsteady but resolute. He would take a couple of steps, then pivot to check on Bella every single time. And when she attempted to follow his lead, her legs trembling and her nose to the ground, he remained close, never more than a breath's distance away. Bella required more time to regain her strength. The severe cold had nearly caused her body to shut down. But whenever she stumbled, Cooper would nuzzle her neck, lick her ear, or lie beside her until she drifted off to sleep. The connection between them was more than just close. It was sacred. Even Elise remarked on it. "I've handled bonded pairs before," she commented one morning over her coffee. "But this is on another level." They ate their meals curled up with each other and slept with their noses tucked under the same paw. If I picked one of them up, the other would cry out until they were reunited. It wasn't anxiety. It was pure devotion, something I had never witnessed before. We began physical therapy on the 5th day, consisting of gentle massages and brief walks down the hallway. Bella was timid, anxious about her surroundings. Cooper, however, was fearless. Every step he took, he seemed to take for her. I would sometimes observe him pausing at a corner, waiting with patience as Bella sniffed her new environment or struggled to maintain her balance. He never hurried her or moved on without her. He simply waited. And in those quiet instances, I witnessed something I hadn't felt since the passing of Max, my old shepherd, nearly a year prior. I saw love. Not the casual kind we often speak of, but the genuine, raw kind. The kind that sits with you in the bitter cold and declares, "If you fall, I will fall with you." I was meant to be their savior, but the more time I spent with them, the more I felt they were saving me, too. On the 7th day, I took them home. It wasn't meant to be a permanent arrangement. It was just a foster situation, or so I told myself. A warm place for them to rest, recover, and reset. But deep down, I already knew the reality of the situation, and I believe they did as well. The instant we walked through the front door, Cooper trotted in as if he had been there countless times. Bella followed closely behind, her small nose twitching with every new scent. They explored the house gradually, one step at a time, as if it were too large for their small frames, but perfectly suited for their bond. I had Max's old bed situated in the corner. It had remained empty for almost a year, as I couldn't bear to put it away. Now, watching Cooper curl into it as if it were made for him, I understood why I had never been able to. Bella climbed in beside him, tucked her head under his chin, and they both let out a sigh in unison, as if they had finally arrived. That night, I sat on the floor and simply observed them as they slept. The fire crackled in the hearth. Snow tapped gently against the window, and for the first time in a very long time, the house felt full. I whispered, "You're home, you too, for as long as you want to be." The following morning, the world outside was covered in a thick blanket of snow. Roads were still impassable, and power lines were down throughout the city. But inside, there was warmth. There were soft, wagging tails and the sound of tiny paws sliding across the wooden floor. Cooper had discovered a tennis ball under the sofa and was parading it around proudly, as if he had found hidden treasure. Bella, as always, followed him, her eyes bright and filled with curiosity. Over the next few weeks, they grew quickly. Bella gained weight, and the sparkle returned to her eyes. She began to run instead of just walk, her ears flopping with every joyful bounce. And Cooper never ceased watching over her, allowing her to take the lead, but gently blocking her path if she got too close to the stairs. They were a team, through and through. Every time someone inquired if they were available for adoption, I found myself unable to respond. My throat would tighten, a pull in my chest, and I came to realize that I hadn't just rescued them. They had rescued me right back. And now, I had no intention of letting them go. A month later, I found myself watching them from the kitchen. Cooper was stretched out on the rug, with Bella curled into his side, both fast asleep in a patch of sunlight, like two halves of a single heartbeat. I stood there, coffee mug in hand, overcome by a feeling I hadn't experienced in years: peace. After Max passed away, I didn't think I would ever feel it again. I had told myself that one dog, one heartbreak, one goodbye was enough. But Cooper and Bella didn't just push open the door I had shut. They ran straight through it, tails wagging and hearts wide open. They taught me how to love again. One afternoon, Elise dropped by with a bag of treats and a wide smile. "They look wonderful," she said, kneeling to greet them. "Stronger, more confident, happy." "They're my everything," I replied. She looked up at me. "Have you ever considered doing more with them? Therapy work, perhaps?" I blinked. "You mean visiting hospitals and shelters?" She nodded. "They have the ideal temperament, especially as a pair. I've never seen a sibling bond like this. They don't just heal each other. They bring a sense of calm to everyone around them." Her words stayed with me. Later that week, I brought them for a visit to a friend's community center. She managed a weekly group for children who had faced trauma, loss, abuse, or abandonment. I hadn't planned on a long visit, just a brief stop to say hello. But the moment Cooper and Bella stepped into the room, the atmosphere shifted entirely. The children, a group of 10, who had been quiet and withdrawn, suddenly lit up. Cooper went directly to a boy sitting farthest from the others, sat down beside him, and leaned in just enough to convey, "I see you." Bella followed suit, curling up next to a girl who hadn't smiled all day and resting her chin on the girl's knee as if it were the most natural act in the world. The silence was broken. The kids began to talk, laugh, and reach out. Cooper and Bella remained still, simply breathing slowly and holding the space for them. Afterward, the counselor took me aside. "Can they return?" she asked. "Some of these children haven't spoken up in weeks, but today they smiled." I looked down at my pups, my family, and I knew this was their calling. It wasn't just about survival. It was about healing, connection, and hope. And they were just beginning. We began our visits to the center weekly. By the third visit, Cooper and Bella had established their routine. They would wait at the entrance for the children to arrive, their tails wagging slowly and steadily, as if they already sensed who needed them most that day. There was no training or commands involved, just pure instinct and heart. There was a young boy named Lucas who never spoke. He had endured more than any child should, and the staff cautioned me not to have high expectations. But Cooper had different ideas. He walked straight to Lucas that day and sat beside him, not nudging or pawing, just being present. After 10 minutes, Lucas reached out and brushed his hand against Cooper's ear. Cooper leaned into the touch and sighed. The next week, Lucas whispered, "Hi." The week after that, he asked if Cooper could sit on his lap. By the fourth visit, Lucas was telling Cooper everything. Details he hadn't shared with anyone about his nightmares, about missing his sister, and about how silence had started to feel safer than words. Cooper never interrupted. He simply listened. Bella possessed her own form of magic. She was drawn to the girls who cried silently, the ones who flinched at loud noises. She would crawl directly into their arms, allowing them to bury their faces in her fur, and somehow, she would melt their fear into something softer. She couldn't fix everything, but she reminded them that they were not alone. At home, their bond continued to deepen. I would wake to find them intertwined like vines. Bella, though smaller, was now bold and confident. Cooper still watched over her like a proud older brother. Every tail wag was shared, every nap taken together. They had journeyed from barely surviving a snowstorm to becoming the warmest presence in every room they entered. As for me, I had stopped using the term fostering a long time ago. They were mine, completely and without question. But more than that, they now belonged to the world, to children like Lucas, to the brokenhearted, to anyone who needed proof that real love never gives up, even in the most frigid of storms. One Friday afternoon, we were invited to a grief support group for siblings who had lost their parents. It was a somber room, filled with low voices and the quiet passing of tissues between small hands, the kind of space where silence often speaks more profoundly than words. I was uncertain if Cooper and Bella could make a difference. Some pain runs so deep it feels unreachable. But the moment we entered, I saw two children sitting side by side, their backs rigid, hands clasped tightly, a brother and a sister. Their resemblance to Cooper and Bella was so striking it momentarily stunned me. I couldn't know what those children had experienced, but the weight on their shoulders was palpable in the air. That kind of grief forces children to grow up too quickly. Bella approached the girl gently and with care, curling up at her feet without demanding anything in return. Cooper walked over to the boy and did something I had never seen him do before. He lay down directly in front of him, not beside him. He faced him, eye to eye, as if to say, "I am here. I understand what it's like to have to be the strong one." The boy blinked rapidly, his lips quivered, and then, without a word, he reached forward, wrapped his arms around Cooper's neck, and sobbed into his fur. I felt a palpable shift in the room. This wasn't just a visit. It was a defining moment, a memory those children would carry with them for the rest of their lives. A moment when they didn't need to articulate their pain, when someone, or something, simply understood. Later, the counselor informed me that the siblings hadn't spoken to each other in days. But that day, they left holding hands. I glanced over at Cooper and Bella, curled into one another on the floor as always, peaceful, unshaken, whole. And I thought, this is the reason they survived. Not just to be safe, not just to heal, but to show others that family is not solely defined by blood. It is the love that holds on when everything else is falling apart. Weeks went by, the snow melted, and spring arrived like a gentle apology for all that winter had claimed. Cooper and Bella were no longer the trembling puppies I had pulled from that box. They were now strong, healthy, and alert, with eyes full of a certain wisdom, not just about each other, but about people as well. It was the kind of wisdom that comes only from surviving something you were never meant to. We established a routine. Mornings at the park, afternoons at the center, and evenings curled up together on the living room rug, as if we had all finally found the rhythm we had been searching for. But it was more than just structure. It was purpose. Everywhere they went, people would smile. Strangers would ask their names. The kids at the center called them the heart dogs. One woman stopped us outside a store and said, "They remind me of my brother. He always protected me like that." She knelt down and kissed Bella on the head. "You two are teaching the world how to love." One night, I sat watching them sleep by the fireplace. The light from the flames danced across their fur, making it appear golden and warm. And I thought about that first night in the storm, the cardboard box, the frostbite, the silence. I whispered, "You were willing to freeze for each other. And now, you're helping others to thaw." They didn't stir, but Cooper's tail thumped once, just a single time, as if to say, "Yes, we remember." That weekend, the center held a small event called Family Day. It was designed for children who had lost their sense of family, to help them redefine it, rebuild it, and feel it once more, if only for a few hours. Cooper and Bella were the guests of honor. They wore little scarves and sat patiently for hours while dozens of children hugged them, cried on them, and told them secrets they couldn't share with adults. They never flinched. They never moved. They held a sacred space for every single child. And when it was all over, I saw Cooper and Bella lying side by side under a banner that read, "Family is who stays." The world had tried to freeze them out, but they hadn't just survived. They had become warmth itself. One evening, as the sun dipped below the rooftops, painting the sky in soft amber hues, I took Cooper and Bella for a quiet stroll through the neighborhood. They moved in perfect rhythm, side by side, as always. Their bodies had grown, but the bond between them remained untouched, untouchable. The same invisible thread that had kept them alive in that storm still connected them, now stronger than ever. We passed a little girl sitting by herself on her porch steps. She had bandages on her knees and a sadness in her eyes that seemed far too old for her age. Cooper slowed down first, looked at her, and waited. Bella followed his lead, quiet and assured. I paused on the sidewalk and watched. The girl didn't move. She just stared at them. Then Cooper stepped forward, with Bella right behind him. There was no wagging or barking, just their presence, that calm, steady heartbeat they brought into every room. Cooper reached her first, sat down, and tilted his head as if asking, "Are you okay?" The girl's lip quivered. She whispered, "You came back." And then I noticed it, the crayon drawing clutched in her hand. It depicted two dogs, one standing protectively over the other, with a box drawn in the corner and a snowy sky above. She had seen their photo, perhaps online or at the center. She knew who they were. She reached out, her fingers touching Cooper's head so gently it made my chest ache. Then Bella moved in and rested her head on the girl's knee. The girl began to cry, not loudly, but with tears falling as if she had been holding them back for days. I walked over slowly, crouched beside her, and asked, "Would you like to sit with them for a while?" She nodded. So I sat down too. We remained there until the sun had completely set, the streetlights flickered to life, and the night enveloped us like a quiet prayer. Sometimes, we believe the world needs fixing. But that night, watching two once abandoned puppies offer comfort to a child without a single word, I understood something far more profound. Sometimes, the world just needs more hearts like theirs, soft, steady, and unbreakable. On the 1-year anniversary of the night I found them, I drove back to that alley. It was warmer now, the snow long gone, replaced by a soft breeze and scattered leaves. But I remembered every single detail. The angle of the dumpster, the slush that had pooled in the corners, the sound of my own heart pounding when I opened that box. This time, Cooper and Bella were with me. Bigger, brighter, and still inseparable. I parked the truck and let them out gently. They sniffed the air, as if it carried some old, buried memory. Cooper walked to the exact spot where the box had been and sat down, his ears erect and his eyes calm. Bella followed and pressed against his side, just as she had on that fateful night. They remembered. Of course, they did. I sat on the curb beside them, my elbows resting on my knees, and let the silence settle around us. "I almost lost you both here," I whispered. "But you refused to give up. You stayed together. And because of that, everything is different now." They didn't move. They just watched me with those knowing eyes. "I thought I was rescuing you, but in reality, you were rescuing me." I pulled a small tag from my pocket, a replica of Max's old name tag. I had kept it all this time, tucked away in a drawer. But today, I held it out in my palm. I never got to say a proper goodbye to him, not the way I wanted to. But I think, maybe, you two brought him back to me in a different form. I gently buried the tag in the earth beside the alley wall, pressed it down with my fingers, and whispered, "Thank you." Cooper leaned in and rested his chin on my knee. Bella curled up against my side. We stayed like that until the streetlights began to buzz above us. Then, we stood up, walked to the truck, and drove home. Not as three souls who had found each other by chance, but as a family. A family forged not by blood or by design, but by something far stronger. By love that refused to surrender. By loyalty that endured the cold. By two small hearts that once beat beneath a frozen sky and now beat strongly enough to warm the world. Cooper and Bella were not just rescued. They became rescuers themselves. Not with special gear or certificates, but with quiet courage. They did it with the way they looked at you, as if they truly saw you, and with the way they stayed right there beside your broken pieces until you remembered how to feel whole again. They taught me that love isn't loud. It is patient and consistent. It is two puppies surviving a storm by holding on to each other, choosing again and again not just to survive, but to return warmth to a world that had once turned cold. They showed me that family isn't always who you expect. Sometimes it's found in a cardboard box, in a trembling body that refuses to give up, or in a paw placed gently on your knee right when you need it most.